Bitcoin on the weekly chart on the BLX. We're going to go back in history today. We're going to look at the first test outside of the bear market, trying to roll into a new bull cycle. What did we do when we retested the 21-week EMA? So the yellow line right here, that's what we're doing. Why? Because let's zoom in. We're rapidly approaching that. Depending on when you watch this video, we may already be at it. What is the exact price as of right now? Well, we got to go to Bitcoin to look at that because the BLX is a little delayed. So the Bitcoin price that we need to be holding, and we'll show you the importance of why we need to do this in just a moment. 21.2, let's go 21.2. Likely be somewhere around that, right? It'll change ever so slightly, but that's where we want to hold. Now we can wick below it. Prices can go below, but we want to be holding this as support. So let's go back to the BLX and look at history. And after the bear market, after we get above it for the first time, what are our chances of holding it for the first time after retesting it? So after we get above it, do we hold it on our first attempt? And the answer may surprise you. So let's go look. What do you think? So here's our bear market, right? Our first attempt back above it and our first initial test. We haven't touched it yet, so we don't know yet, but our first chance is coming up here. So are we going to hold it? Well, let's go look back at the previous. Should we look at 2018 first? Might as well. That's our last bear cycle right here, right? Our initial recovery of the 21 week. Did we test it yet? No test, no test, no test. That's a pretty explosive move. Our first test actually happened right here. And did we hold it? I would say a blatant no, right? So no hold there. That led to, this black swan event that didn't, maybe won't happen again because of that, but we did not hold, right? We're just looking at the facts here. Did we hold our first initial test after a bear cycle, after we get above it, and our first touch, do we hold? That's a no, right? But look what happens when we do hold it, right? Here's our V-shaped recovery, our initial test right there. After the March 2020 drop, test and hold, right? We did not close below it. When you do not close below the 21 week after getting above it, that's when you're usually good to go. If the first test fails, then you usually got some work to do. So that's 2018, right? Let's go back and look at the next cycle, right? So we're going all the way back, 2015, right? Here's the 2014, 2015 bear market. Here's our 200 week EMA. We initially get back above it. Well, let's look at kind of two data points here, right? I would say our initial move off of the 21 week and our initial test did not hold again right here, right? Was that the lows? The lows were already in. So I would say our first attempt was right here. Did we hold? No. Our second attempt, look at this, back above the yellow line 21 week. Where did we test it again? Right here. Weeks later after getting back above it. October 12th of 2015, we broke above it. We tested it. January of 2016, we held it. Did good things come? Yes. You really don't close below it after your bull run, real true bull run starts. You're not closing below the 21 week EMA, right? Look at all this, right? This is going back just a couple of years now. Now we're going back to 2015. So keep that in mind. This is not something new, right? So this is why we're looking at this in depth. Maybe some of you have not seen this, right? So we're going back all the way back to the good old heyday of the first bull run, right? 2010 to, the best bull run, right? ROI wise, that was insane. We went from like pennies to dollars, right? That was a huge move, but bear market nonetheless. Here we are. And our first recapture going back, over 10 years now. This is over a decade. It still holds true, right? Our first initial test back above the 21 week. Did we hold it? No. Right? And then more work to do for weeks and months. Our second test, did we hold it? Back above it right here. Come back down, and here's our initial test. After our second test, I should say, right? Our initial test was here, failed. First test fails. So the past three bear markets going into the bull cycle, the first test failed. The second test held every one of them. Here's our second test, and off to the races, right? You held again on the second time. Weeks and months later, after the first initial test, are you catching a pattern here? So where are we now? Right, let's go back, right? Let's put it on Bitcoin now. We don't need to go back in history. We just did that. So now We're going back where we are now, the 21-week EMA. We are right upon it right now for our first initial test. Now, we have never held Bitcoin on the first initial test. There's been some right very quickly after and been some 6 months after before we held. But this is our first initial test of the 21-week. Historically, Bitcoin has not been able to hold it the first time, but the second time usually works like a charm, and then you're off to the races. So will this time be different? Could very well be. Will this time fail? The odds are that it fails the first initial test based on history going back to 2010, 2011, right? So that line in the sand is 21.2. So mark it on your calendars, right? We've talked about this level for months, not just because of the 21 week, but you don't want to give away your big recovery levels, right? So here's our kind of support zone. The previous high before the FTX candle here, that's what we want to be holding. That's our support zone. 20,900 was where that candle closed. If we lose that, do we go straight to zero? No. As much as some bears want it to happen, we have our kind of our weekly resistance at the 200-week rejection off the 200 at 25K. So if we lose this level, if we say we close on Sunday and 3 days, 9 hours, and you see prices under 20,900, where does that mean we would likely go test next? Well, I'm glad you asked. Let's go right back to here, around 19K to 18.5, right? That was our big level that we talked about all down here that we had to break through. And did we do it? We did it with great fashion. So just like the FTX cut right through it, right? The recovery candle cut right through it. So that previous support became almost zero resistance except for one band. But that is, I would say, the minimum of where we go if we close under 20,900 this week, next week, many weeks ahead, right? It's not going to change. Now, if we lose this level, yeah, then you guessed it. We're probably going to these low. Here's our next support around 16.5. But I would say if we're going down here again, we're in deeper trouble, right? Where we probably need some more longer times of consolidation, build back up. But not all is doom and gloom. I think we're going on here? I think the odds are probably still against it, right? We haven't seen no proof in the charts yet that we're going down here. So let's eliminate that, at least for now. Just trying to give you a heads up for the bigger picture. What else could we do? Well, we could be looking at some kind of a macro kind of uptrend where we're kind of looking like at this kind of line, right? Generally fit, right? If we're kind of going to break this, right? Not all hope is lost, right? We could be forming just our first move off the lows, then we come back down and we're trying to look for a higher low from here, right? If we do that, maybe we bounce off of 18.5, 19K, do something like that, and then move back to the upside in a bigger way, towards the summertime, right? That could also happen. That's also if we don't take out these lows. But if we put in a higher low, right, a lot of people will be in panic mode, fear rampant. All the bears will be back out on your favorite social media site. All your biggest influencers and favorite YouTubers will probably be screaming, get out, the end is near. But you'll be smarter than that. We're looking for facts in the charts. If we bounce off of here, we're still good. We could be looking at a bigger macro picture. And I'm not saying we're going to do it in May, right? It could be out here. It could be here, right? Something like this. You're just looking for kind of a loose structure to fit this narrative and climb us back out. And I think once, the bull market has fully started, we will, have that signal above the 200-week moving average. That's where we're looking for the big players to really, the big hedge funds are looking to get in all of their big money above the 200-week, above 25K. We're going to have to see it before everyone is convinced that we're in the full bull cycle. So hopefully we see something like this. If we lose this level, I would love to just, bypass all this and, maybe we bounce off of here, right? And then we start to kind of recover a little bit sooner. But if our next peak is in 2025, it's way out here, right? Unlikely, I believe that our next peak is somewhere, out in, this area. I don't want to draw a circle because the prices are going to be much higher, but for just, rough time zones, I'm thinking, the crypto peak, I would say sometime between spring of 2025 to, maybe fall of 2025, right in there. Obviously much higher prices. We can get into all that. when we get there. But just trying to give you a time warp here on the weekly chart. If we zoom up, at this level, right? Let's remove some drawings here, right? If we're trying to peak over here, I highly doubt that we're going to just, kind of moon launch immediately. I think we're going to need more time. We're not likely to just start coming out of this in 2023. I think we're going to need more time. I think something more along these lines is much more fit for the odds, is that we kind of 2023 is kind of a more restructuring, rebuilding year. Not saying we can't move to higher prices, but something like this, moving up into later in 2023, maybe we break out, and then we're slowly building up, get above that 21 week, move back down again, and then just start building our structure back to the upside, right? So not for prices wise, but just a structure wise, that's kind of what I'm looking for, more or less. So we'll get into all that as prices show us, but wanted to at least get something out, show you that the importance of holding this, and the history of our first test has not gone so well. So for first test be our first time, right? First time for everything. We'll see, but the odds have it that we're going to lose this on the first initial test. Whether or not we retry again over the next couple weeks to several months is yet unknown. But our first initial test, the previous 3 bear cycles have failed. So our second have held all previous 3 cycles. So we will see. Let me know what your thoughts are. Are we going to hold this time? Are we going to lose bigly? Are we going back to new lows? Are we going to put in a higher low on the bigger scale in the coming months? Let me know. I try to read all the comments. Happy to see what you think. So if you want more help navigating the markets, want much more content than what you see here, join us on Telegram. Links below. Patreon. That's where all the extra stuff comes. So let's get to quote of the day. Respect is what we owe. Love what we give. How sweet. Car of the day. I took this last weekend. Went to the Amelia Island Concours d'Elegance, and there was some doozies there. This one you might recognize, the McLaren F1. This is actually owned by McLaren, so these start, if you can find them, for about 10 million. They go up from there, so assuming that, you want to buy one from McLaren, I would assume that's a little bit more. So I've seen these go up to 25 million. I would say this is probably closer to that since it's owned by a McLaren. McLaren F1. So back from 1998. Still amazing. 1-seater. Roof scoop built in. Doors go up, you guessed it. And just spectacular. So they had these on show. This is kind of a McLaren 60th year anniversary. So it's kind of a rainy day to start with. You can see some on their actual F1 and Le Mans cars in the background covered up. They don't have tops. You're like, why did they cover that up and not the $10 million one? Well, this one's got a top. So there's another one. And these are actual pictures I actually took. So pretty cool. And there they had another display, the new old and the new. Their new race car, the Artura GT4. To my knowledge, they said this was the first time debut at a show. So pretty spectacular there. McLaren Artura race car. Bonus car of the day. All right. Hopefully you found something interesting. Otherwise, you stopped watching a long time ago and I'm talking to nobody. I'll see you on the next one. Peace out.